April 17th, 1943. 27,000 feet above Bremen, Germany. The sky is white with contrails and black with flak bursts. You can almost hear the metal screaming before you see it. A B-17 flying fortress shudders as anti-aircraft shells rip through the formation. Inside the cockpit, oxygen masks snap tight against frozen faces, hands numb, fingers stiff. The bomber lurches left, then right, one engine coughing smoke into the slipstream. From below, Messerschmitts rise like sharks. Oberlieutenant Karl Müller of the Luftwaffe watches the bomber stagger out of formation. He has seen this before. The Americans always fly straight, predictable. Disciplined, yes, but tactically naive, a perfect target. His cannon wounds tear through the bomber's wing root. Fuel ignites. Fire crawls backward along the fuselage. One by one, black specks tumble out. Parachutes blossom late, too late for some. Müller pulls up, banking away as the American aircraft spirals downward, breaking apart before it hits the earth. Another kill, another proof that German skill still counts for something in this war. 2 hours later, Müller is on the ground, marching with his hands raised. The irony isn't lost on him. A navigation error, a rough landing in a nearby field, and suddenly the hunter is the captive. American infantrymen move quickly, rifles leveled, faces unreadable. They look young, not the hardened professionals Müller expected. He is searched, his pistol taken, his iron cross noted with faint curiosity, then dismissed. By nightfall, Müller sits in the back of a truck with 3 other captured Luftwaffe officers. The engine hums steadily. No one speaks. Eventually, the truck gates open, not to a barbed wire pen, but to a lit compound with heated buildings, clean floors, hot food, real bread, meat, coffee. Müller exchanges a look with Major Hans Richter beside him. This is not what they were told. Over the next weeks, the shock compounds. At first, they assume it's temporary. A show. The Americans always put on shows, but the routines persist. Medical checks, adequate rations, no beatings, no interrogations beyond polite questions. There is time, too much time, and so the questions begin. Who are these people? How can they afford this? How long can it last? The answer comes not from an interrogator, but from a bus. One morning, word spreads through the camp. A tour. The Americans are taking select officers to see something. No explanation given. Müller almost refuses. Propaganda, he assumes. Another trick, but curiosity wins. They board the bus under light guard. The road stretches endlessly, cutting through towns that show no signs of bombing. Factories hum. Trains move on schedule. There are cars everywhere. Too many cars. Richter leans close. This country is untouched, he mutters, like the war is happening somewhere else. After hours, the bus turns off the highway and slows. What Müller sees through the window makes him sit forward. The building is vast, not tall, wide, so wide it seems to curve with the earth itself. Smokestacks rise in the distance. Parking lots spill outward, filled with thousands of vehicles. An American officer stands at the front of the bus, casual, almost proud. "Gentlemen," he says, "this is the Willow Run plant." The name means nothing yet. They step inside. The noise hits first. A constant thunder of machinery, shouting, engines running not in combat but in creation. Assembly lines stretch farther than Müller can see, disappearing into haze and steel girders. Then he notices the workers. Women, teenagers, men far past military age. They wear coveralls, hair tied back. Some laugh as they work. Others move with practiced efficiency, rivet guns snapping in rhythm. No hesitation, no ceremony. A B-17 bomber fuselage glides past overhead on a conveyor belt. Another follows it, then another. Müller stops walking. These are combat aircraft, Richter whispers, as if the machines might hear him. An American guide smiles. 1 every hour, he says. at peak every hour. Mueller feels something tighten in his chest. He forces himself to look closer. The tolerances are tight, the workmanship solid. This is no crude mass production. This is precision, scaled beyond anything he imagined possible. He watches a woman barely older than his sister fit a component into place with practiced ease. She doesn't look heroic. She looks ordinary, and that is what terrifies him most. Back home, bombers are built by master craftsmen, skilled laborers trained for years. Even then, production is slow, painfully slow. Here, unskilled civilians are doing it faster, better, endlessly. Mueller suddenly understands something he has been trained never to consider. This war will not be decided by courage alone. And as the line moves forward, bombers emerging whole at the far end like products from a forge, Mueller realizes the question is no longer whether Germany can win, it's whether Germany ever had a chance at all. And standing there on that factory floor, the answer is becoming unbearably clear. The tour does not slow down for their silence. Mueller keeps walking because the line keeps moving. There is no natural place to stop here, no pause, no reverence. The machines dictate the rhythm, and the humans, thousands of them, move to it like parts of a single organism. The American guide's voice cuts through the roar, calm, almost bored. 12 miles of electrical wiring in each aircraft, he says. All color-coded. Means a new worker can learn the basics in a week. A week. Mueller pictures the technical schools back in Germany. Months of training, exams, certifications. Skilled hands in short supply, bombers rationed like fine china. Here, they are commodities. He watches as a fuselage section arrives incomplete. A bell rings. Workers swarm it, not frantically, but confidently. Each person does one thing, one rivet pattern, one cable run, one panel. No one needs to understand the entire machine. They only need to understand their piece. That is the revelation. Germany builds machines that require experts. America builds systems that create machines. And systems can be scaled. The line advances. The sound never fades. They pass under finished wings being lowered into place from overhead cranes. Each wing carries the same emblem, the same dimensions, identical, as if stamped from a mold. Mueller turns to Richter. How many of these do they make per month? Before Richter can guess, the guide answers. Over 600 B-24 Liberators at peak, he says. And this is just one plant. Mueller swallows. 600. He thinks of the nights over the Reich, of bomber streams stretching from horizon to horizon, of how command had assured them the losses were unsustainable. America would run out of planes, out of crews, out of will. Standing here, that belief collapses. They round a corner and come face to face with completed aircraft, rows upon rows of them. Fresh paint, no battle scars, engines gleaming, untouched by smoke or flak. Ready. An American officer joins them now. Crisp uniform, West Point confidence. He doesn't sneer, doesn't gloat. He gestures broadly, as if showing off a prize horse. These will be ferried east within days, he says. Some of them will be replacing aircraft you helped shoot down. The statement lands harder than any insult. Mueller imagines the bomber he destroyed weeks ago. The long spiral, the fire, the men falling, replaced, already. The officer continues. We don't measure success by how good one plane is. We measure it by how fast we replace what's lost. That sentence larges itself in Mueller's mind like shrapnel. Back in Germany, loss is catastrophe. Each aircraft a national investment. Each crew irreplaceable. Here, loss is inconvenience. The group reaches a raised platform overlooking the line. From this height, the scale becomes obscene. The plant stretches beyond vision, curving slightly. Only now does Mueller realize the building itself compensates for the Earth's curvature. The war feels suddenly small. Mueller notices something else now, the absence of fear. No one is rushing. No guards loom over workers. No one flinches at loud noises. These people are not under attack. Not here, not ever. They build bombers the way bakers make bread, continuously. A young woman wipes grease from her hands and laughs at a joke he cannot hear. Another hums to the radio as she works. A supervisor checks a clipboard. Male, middle-aged, unremarkable. This is not desperation. This is normalcy. The bus ride back is quieter than the ride in. No one mocks now. No whispered dismissals. No scoffing at American softness or civilian inefficiency. Richter sits rigid, staring out the window at endless highways and uninterrupted rail lines. He finally says, when they lose 100 bombers, they replace them before we finish writing the report. Mueller doesn't answer, because he can't. Images collide in his mind. Briefings at Luftwaffe headquarters, Goering's assurances, promises that American morale would crack under losses. But morale is not the issue. Capacity is. And capacity does not care how brave you are. Back at the camp, Mueller lies awake long after lights out. He stares at the ceiling as the truth presses in from all sides. Germany cannot bomb this into submission, cannot outfight it, cannot outlast it. Even if every pilot flies perfectly, even if every engagement is won, the math still fails. He realizes then why the Americans brought them here, not to boast, but to demonstrate inevitability. And that is when fear truly takes hold. Not fear of death, but of meaninglessness. All the skill, all the sacrifice, all the victories in the air, rendered irrelevant by a factory line. Days later, an American sergeant casually mentions something over lunch, almost as an aside. By the way, he says, that's not the only plant like Willow Run. Mueller looks up sharply. The sergeant shrugs. Just the biggest.
The next realization comes quietly. No tour, no bus, no guide, just a newspaper. It's late summer 1943. Sunlight cuts through the barracks window as Mueller sits at a wooden table, turning pages meant, officially, for morale. American morale. Sports scores. Factory milestones, smiling photographs. He almost misses it. A small article near the bottom of the page. Not a headline, not dramatic. New plants opened in California, Texas, and Ohio contribute to record bomber output. Mueller reads it twice, then a third time. California, Texas, Ohio. He folds the paper slowly, as if careful movement might change the words. Somewhere across the camp, someone is laughing. A baseball game is being played. Life goes on. That is when the full shape of the problem reveals itself. Willow Run was not the heart. It was a node. Germany's war economy is a pyramid, narrow at the top, fragile at the base. Hit the factories, and the structure trembles. Hit them hard enough, and it collapses. That logic has governed everything Mueller has believed. But America is not a pyramid. It is a web, scattered, redundant, vast beyond comprehension, factories inland beyond bomber range, rail lines with alternatives, power grids with backups, management systems designed to route around damage instead of stopping for it. You cannot decapitate something that has no single head. Mueller begins listening more carefully now, to the guards, to the commandant, to the radio broadcasts piped in during meals. Production figures roll by like weather reports. So many aircraft this month, so many ships launched this week. They speak of them the way Germans speak of harvest yields. Normal, expected. What unnerves Mueller most is how little hatred there is in it. No vengeful language, no grand rhetoric about annihilation, just output. One evening, Richter joins him by the fence line. They stand quietly, watching the sun dip behind the camp watchtower. I used to think the Americans were improvising, that they were clever amateurs. Mueller nods. He thought the same. But improvisation ends. This doesn't. A memory surfaces for Mueller then. Something his instructor said years ago at flight school. Wars are won by nations, not armies. Back then, it sounded like a platitude. Now, it sounds like prophecy. He imagines German planners studying diagrams, debating optimal designs, fewer planes, better planes. Across the ocean, Americans argue about flows, bottlenecks, hours saved, Mistakes tolerated because volume forgives imperfection. Perfection scales poorly. Good enough, multiplied endlessly, does not. This is not brilliance. It is philosophy. Weeks pass. Some prisoners are transferred. New ones arrive. Younger pilots. More shattered. They bring stories from the skies. B-17s flying deeper. Escorts further than before. Losses replaced almost immediately. Entire formations rebuilt between missions. One pilot says something that Mueller cannot forget. "We shot down 5 today," the man says dully. "Tomorrow, there will be 10 more. No pride, no triumph, just arithmetic." Mueller realizes the cruelest truth of all. Individual bravery still matters. Skill still matters, but not enough. Not anymore. You can almost see the future from here. The endless lines at Willow Run, the silent factories inland, the systems humming unaffected by blasts or speeches. Germany is fighting men and machines. America is fighting with time itself. And time, Mueller understands now, is on their side. One night, an American officer stops near the fence. He recognizes Mueller from the tour. "You seem thoughtful, Oberleutnant," he says casually. Mueller hesitates, then asks the question that has been clawing at him for months. "How long do you think this war will last?" The officer considers. "It will last longer than people hope, shorter than Germany needs." He smiles politely and walks off. Mueller closes his eyes, because somewhere right now, another factory shift is starting. Another bomber is moving down the line, and nothing Mueller does in the air will stop it.
The snow melts slowly that spring, not all at once, not directly. It seeps out, turning hard pad into something softer. Gives when you step on it. The war, Mueller realizes, is doing the same thing. It isn't ending with a crash. It's ending with absorption. New prisoners arrive in 2s and 3s now. Fewer pilots, infantry. Their stories no longer carry only exhaustion, fuel shortage, aircraft grounded for lack of training flights canceled, orders revised and then revised again. Luftwaffe, Mueller remembers, is fading. Soon, an old German officer named Weber, former logistics staff, not flight crew, joins Mueller. Weber has a habit of seeing things as they are, not as he wishes. "You know what finished?" Weber says, apropos of nothing. Mueller waits. "Predictability." Weber's. "We optimized everything to perfection. No lack." He gestures vaguely toward the far horizon. "Optimized for resilience. They expected loss." Mueller thinks of Willow Run again. The deliberate inefficiency. Parts miss, routes duplicated. Workers trained to replace each other in a machine designed not to avoid edge, but to survive it. Another announcement crackles over the radio, casual, almost cheerful. American production for exceeded force once again. No one reacts anymore. That is perhaps the clearest sign of surrender, not political, but psychological. The outcome internalized. Mueller sometimes dreams, not of bombs, of conveyor belts stretching into shadow, of aircraft emerging whole, burned, unreal, of a sound, steady, unstopped. He wakes with the sense that something is moving, whether he watches it or not. In late August, a guard named Thompson, young, Midwestern, unfailingly polite, stops by Mueller's. Mueller was a pilot. No against the bomb. "My sister works at a plant back home," Thompson says one day. "She's never left Indiana." Mueller nods. "Proud of it," Thompson adds. "He's doing something that matters." There is no malice in his voice, bragging, just quiet certainty. Mueller wonders whether Germans at home feel that anymore. Whether civilians under bombs still their effort pushes the war forward or merely holds it weak. The answer arrives in another letter. Short, careful. Fiercer now. Reclosed after the rail. "We are alive. That is all." That. Mueller folds the letter beneath his pillow. He walks, counting steps, a habit he picked time. Lap, he stops and looks up. There are no bombers overhead. Just stars. The almost heard. Those stars, confrontations are still happening, fighting, still done. But the war itself has already passed visible threshold. When victory depends who's continue, thus endlessly without being hit, decides the outcome. Mueller's what Willow represented. Not American reality. They did not believe won by brilliance or hear generals. They believed wars were won by effort into output, boringly, without pause. That belief forged an advance could erase. Years later, to explain this to us, he will struggle to find the words. How do you describe losing not a weapon, not even an enemy you can hate, just capacity, just momentum? Answer printed in steel and women in overalls working a second shift. On the day Germany surrenders, there are no lamp, only silence. Mueller stands by the fence through. Around him, some men bow their heads, others stare straight ahead. Mueller closes his eyes. He sees the free again, blind. Stands without clarity that the war had been decided last moment.
The snow melts slowly that spring, not all at once, not dramatically. It seeps into the ground, turning hard-packed mud into something softer, something that gives when you step on it. The war, Mueller realizes, is doing the same thing. It isn't ending with a crash. It's ending with absorption. New prisoners arrive in 2s and 3s now. Fewer pilots, more infantry. Their stories no longer carry confidence, only exhaustion, fuel shortages, aircraft grounded for lack of parts, training flights canceled, orders revised and then revised again. The Luftwaffe Mueller remembers is fading. One afternoon, an older German officer named Weber, former logistics staff, not flight crew, joins Mueller at the fence. Weber has a habit of seeing things as they are, not as he wishes them to be. You know what finished us? Weber says, apropos of nothing. Mueller waits. Predictability, Weber continues. We optimized everything to perfection. No waste, no slack. He gestures vaguely toward the far horizon. They optimized for resilience. They expected loss. Mueller thinks of Willow Run again. The deliberate inefficiency of redundancy. Parts made twice. Routes duplicated. Workers trained to replace each other instantly. A machine designed not to avoid damage, but to survive it. In July, another announcement crackles over the radio. Casual, almost cheerful. American aircraft production for the quarter exceeded forecasts once again. No one reacts anymore. That is perhaps the clearest sign of surrender. Not formal, not political, but psychological. The outcome has been internalized. At night, Mueller sometimes dreams of the factory, not of bombs or dogfights, of conveyor belts stretching into shadow, of aircraft emerging whole, unburned, unreal, of a sound, steady, unstoppable. He wakes with the sense that something vast is moving, whether he watches it or not. In late August, a guard named Thompson, young, Midwestern, unfailingly polite, stops by Mueller's work detail. Thompson knows Mueller was a pilot, knows he flew against the bombers. My sister works at a plant back home, Thompson says one day. She's never left Indiana. Mueller nods. She's proud of it, Thompson adds. Feels like she's doing something that matters. There is no malice in his voice, no bragging, just quiet certainty. Mueller wonders whether Germans at home feel that anymore, whether civilians under bombs still believe their effort pushes the war forward, or merely holds it off another week. The answer arrives in September. Another letter, short, careful. Food is scarcer now. The factory closed after the rail yard was hit. We are alive. That is all. That is all. Mueller folds the letter
and places it beneath his pillow. He walks the perimeter that evening, counting steps, a habit he picked up to keep time. On the 13th lap, he stops and looks up. There are no bombers overhead, just stars. The irony almost hurts. Somewhere under those stars, confrontations are still happening. Men are still fighting, still dying. But the war itself has already passed an invisible threshold. When victory depends on who can lose more and continue, the side that builds endlessly without being hit decides the outcome. Mueller finally understands what Willow Run really represented. Not American arrogance, American acceptance of reality. They did not believe wars were won by brilliance alone, or heroes, or even generals. They believed wars were won by turning effort into output, reliably, boringly, without pause. That belief forged an advantage no ace could erase. Years later, Mueller will try to explain this to others. He will struggle to find the words. How do you describe losing to a system? Not a weapon, not a strategy, not even an enemy you can hate. Just capacity, just momentum, just an answer printed in steel and rivets and women in overalls working a second shift. On the day Germany surrenders, there are no cheers in the camp, only silence. Mueller stands by the fence as the announcement comes through. Around him, some men bow their heads, others stare straight ahead. Mueller closes his eyes. He sees the factory again, the endless line, and he understands with absolute clarity that the war had been decided long before this moment.